Glover Daniels delivers fast and flexible recruitment research solutions to leading multinational companies and executive search consultancies around the world. Just go to gloverdaniels.com to find out more. Hey everyone, welcome back to Recruiters Live Lounge, where you get to meet and hang out with some of the most inspiring recruitment entrepreneurs on this planet. And today's Live Lounge guest is Steven Convery. Steven is the owner and director at Recruitment, based in the Midlands in the UK. And let me just tell you a bit about Steve. He started off his career, he describes as an old school recruiter. Nothing wrong with that. But, you know, his meaning without a computer. And relying on old school methods. I think his first days in recruitment were very similar to mine. Here's a phone, here's the yellow pages, best of luck. We know all about that. Times have obviously changed since then, and Steven has become a highly accomplished people manager, and is the owner director of this, which is his second recruitment business. Steven has a strong experience in turnarounds and startups, and currently invests his time in his newest venture, Recruitment, with business partner Corinna Shields. Since moving on from his old school recruitment methods, Steven now insists that the 21st century modern technology is at the heart of his business, with the latest cloud-based products. And he uses those to assist his back office, of course he does, and business functions. But he's got a major focus on pushing his brand through all of the social media platforms. Steven, I hope I got all of that right. How's it going?
Yeah, great introduction, Roy. Thanks for that.
Fantastic. We try. We work hard. Yeah. Steven, look, tell us a bit more about the work that you guys do at Recruitment.
Yeah, so Concur Recruitment was formed in 2013, like you say, with Corinna and myself. We're now getting into the second stage of what we see as the development of the business, and that's really to start scaling up. For the first year or so, Corinna and I went back to the tools and started working hard to get to a level playing field, and then kind of the last year we've really been focusing on bringing the best talent into the business. Now we're really looking to scale that up. So the process procedures are all done and dusted. And like you say, back in my day, I was a pinboard and cards recruiter, but now it's completely changed. We're obviously using modern technology like we're using today. So I'm suppose at a stage where you've just got to give in and say, right, actually we are using these modern technologies to make the business better, and it's working for the best, Roy.
Fantastic. And Steve, look, the reason why I was smiling there is, of course, we share very similar entries into recruitment. Mine, you're considerably younger and better looking than me, but mine was really similar in that whole thing of like, here's a phone, here's the yellow pages. I would imagine that there's going to be many recruiters watching this episode or listening to the podcast that have not even seen the yellow pages. It's an online directory now, far easier to find. But Steve, look, on behalf of everyone in Recruiters Live Lounge, we're really pleased to have you here. And I also think that the stage that Concur Recruitment is currently, of that, we've got through our first year. Is this your second year now? Is it?
Just filed our second year's accounts, yeah.
Okay, so having got through that first year, which is crucial for people, and not the easiest one to do. Yeah. It's like, okay, what do we do? How do we grow that? And I think there'll be many people watching or listening to this episode really keen to find out how you guys are doing it. Yeah. So, Steven, without further ado, let me get into our first question with you. Yeah. At Recruiters Live Lounge, we always like to kick off with our guests' favourite success quote. What's yours, and how do you apply it to your business every day?
Yeah, Mine would be one nobody's ever heard of, Roy, and that's because it's my own, right? So my own success quote is: the only day I'm going to worry about any competitor is the day I look to buy them out. And the reason of that is because I think in recruitment, having competitors is only a healthy thing for the market. Yeah. I never ever have once worried about competitors in my market. I use that as a catalyst to make sure that myself and the business that I work in, whether it's my own or clients that or companies that I worked for before, making sure that I am the best at what I can be. I think if you get too heads up on what your competitors are doing, you can fall foul to letting them overtake you. So my motto is to make sure that I will never worry about them. I will always make sure that I will do my best to make sure I'm the leading company there, and the only day I'm going to worry about my competitors is the day that I look to buy them out.
I love
so there
that.
we go, Roy.
I love that. I think that's a brilliant one. And Steve, does it mean, because I agree with you, it's interesting because most of what people would perceive as my competitors are people that I know quite well, and we get on, and we often share they're affable, relationships. They're not sort of adversaries. But would you say to be aware of your competition is a good thing, but just not to fear it?
Yeah, 100%. You've got to be aware of your competitors, and you've got to know what they're doing, and you have got to watch them and ensure that you are mindful of them as a business. But I never go home worrying about my competitors, or it never keeps me up at night worrying what they're doing. I just need to make sure that I focus on my business and make sure it's the best business that I can make it.
Yeah. I agree with that. I always think as well that, good competition obviously spurs us on to greater things. And also from a client point of view and a candidate point of view, the better the standards are in our industry, the better everybody is. If clients have good experience of working with recruiters, then actually the sell of your business into them, I believe, is made easier because they understand the value of a good recruitment service. Yeah. We're just going to tell them how we're going to do it better, right?
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, okay. Agree 100%.
Cool. Stephen, look, behind every successful entrepreneur, we know, certainly in my own case, it's kind of, there's littered with failures and challenges. Excuse me. What would you describe as your biggest failure in recruitment or business, in the past?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know where to start or end with that. I have them on probably a daily basis. But I'd probably say the biggest one for me was my previous recruitment business. So I had that for 4 years. It was an industrial specialist recruitment agency, and there was kind of two failings in it. I suppose the first one for me was insurance. I had a client that I'd supplied for probably about 3 years, and a decent client, paid their bills on time, never early, never really late, but always on time. Right. And for the full 3 years, I tried to gain insurance on them and couldn't gain insurance, but continued to supply to them. And then one day got a phone call from a receivership saying that they'd unfortunately gone under and took me for a fair bit of money. And that, for a week, it was like, right, okay, when am I going to be getting my money type of thing? And obviously the way it works, the revenue and everything, take their money and whatnot first. And within a week, I'd gone from owning a business to literally having to pull the shutters down. So it was a failure. But if I look back and say, what were the biggest things from it? There was one, insurance, and okay, I couldn't get insurance on them. But what I didn't do was make sure that I had kind of fail safe to say, right, if I am prepared to take a risk on this company, that what am I going to stump up, have a pot or something like that? I didn't. That's one of my biggest failings. But even with it, I think probably the biggest thing for me is complacency. I think I felt that as the years went on, I got more complacent that if I take that client in isolation, that everything's okay. Do you know what I mean? I'm just going to not necessarily really push on and develop things. I believe that I got complacent, and that's one thing that I really push on now. So one is insurance, and okay, Roy, as you well know, you've got to take risks in business, and even today I take it, but I'll take a calculated risk or make sure that I've got a backup plan if I can't, for instance, gain insurance on a client. But then the second thing is I never ever get complacent. Every day I go home and I think to myself, right, is there anything that I've done today that is making me start to get complacent? And that's probably the two biggest things for me and the failures I've had.
Stephen, that's great advice. And you know, knowing you, I know that you're driven by that as well. It's like not allowing that complacency to creep in, I think, has kept you at the top of your particular game for a long time, and long may that continue. And you know something, it's like it's a painful lesson to learn, that one of a client going under and being vulnerable, and you know, I've been there myself, and I know how crippling that can be. Thank you for your honesty in terms of describing how, you know, that customer going down actually brought down your business. And it's interesting because I was watching or listening to somebody talk about, protecting one's business. And he was saying on a webinar that I attended that he said, you know, every business should look to be able to keep the lights on, was his phrase, for a period of 60 days, i.e. that they, you know, you had enough cash reserves to be able to do that for a minimum of 60 days. But he said, you know, if you can build that up to be able to last 3 months, 6 months, a year, where if something catastrophic went wrong within your business, that you would be able to, as again, you know, keep the lights on. You know, I don't want to ask you the sum that you've kind of got now in terms of that contingency plan, but is that along the same lines as what you've learned from it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even now, like I said before, you have got to take risks. Do you know what I mean? We've actually, I won't name any names, but we've got a client that we've actually signed up to a sole supply agreement.
Good.
That, and we've been supplying them probably about a year now. And it's a quite automotive manufacturers in the Midlands. And at the point of us starting to work with them, we did a similar thing. We couldn't gain insurance on it, but we took a calculated risk to say, right, how long would it take? And a similar thing to what you're saying, Roy, basically 60 days. We need to make sure that we can fund this, and it's the director's responsibility to make sure that we do that. And actually, lo and behold, we again, with my insurance head on, we've then tried for insurance, and now we can gain insurance on them. So all that risk paid off. And I wouldn't ever do it to put the jeopardy of the business into play like I had before. But you've still got to take risks, I think, as a business owner. You just got to make sure they're calculated.
Steve, I've really not heard that. I've really not heard that before. The point that, you know, I picked up from what you just said there was that as a director of the business, you feel that responsibility to take risks, calculated risks, but always the protection of the business and the staff that work within that business are reliant on you to make those decisions, to take those risks, but to also make sure that their positions are covered and that they're safe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't hear too many directors kind of saying that. They might feel it, they might think it, they just don't tell me that. So
yeah, I think it's the key thing as well. I mean, it's one of the hardest things. I've had it throughout my career when I was I suppose back on the tools, as they say, when you've been trying to get into a client for years and years and years, and then they give you a go, and then only to be rejected by credit. So it is one of those things that if someone's worked hard on a client, you do want to do all the best you can as a business owner to make sure that you at least try and say, right, okay, we are going to supply, but it's either on these terms or it's, you know what I mean, you make it applicable to that particular client to make sure that it works. And okay, occasionally it doesn't, but you've got to at least say that you've tried, right?
Stephen, I know that a lot of the people watching this interview or listening to this podcast are not based in the UK. You know, most of the people listening will be overseas or, you know, in different countries. You mentioned insurance, getting insurance on a customer. Could you kind of explain what that means for you, just so that people listening to this, there may be a similar application within their regions. I just want them to kind of understand what you mean by insurance.
Yeah, so whenever we take on a client, we will always run a credit check on them for obvious reasons.
Good.
And then we will go to our insurance broker and then take out policy to ensure that the debt. Again, we take certain risks with certain clients, but we've got there's two types. We've got, obviously, because we do permanent recruitment and temporary or contract recruitment. The temporary and permanent, because it's paid out at points, so the next week, but we won't see that actual revenue come back for, like, say, 30, 60 days.
Right.
And we've got to make sure that invoice is then insured, and we can gain 95% of the value of that invoice. So at least it's protecting not only the staff that work internally for me, but any contractors that are out on site. Again, that's one of our founding mottos, that we will make sure that every contractor or temp that works for us will be paid on the Friday that they're due to be paid. It's one of the key principles of this business. And it is making sure that, and if anything did ever happen, that we can still, Friday comes around, we run the payroll and the contractors get paid.
Love it. Love that, Steve. And, again, it's interesting, isn't it? Some of us have got to go through those very painful lessons in order to learn some of these things that are our guiding principles in the businesses we work now. But sounds like you've picked out the best of that experience.
Trying.
It's always a work in progress.
Exactly. Yeah.
Stephen, describe for us the Eureka moment in recruitment. Everyone has it, where the light bulb goes off, everything slots into place, and it's not accurate to say plain sailing, but it's a lot clearer than previously. What was your Eureka moment?
I suppose it was just before I opened my first business, Roy, where, as you know, I was working for a national industrial recruiter, and I chose them as a business because they had a great reputation in the market, and still do today. And one thing that they did have was the management structure there was excellent. I mean, even now, again, it is a little bit old school, and I wouldn't put the principles into place in my own business, but it was doing press-ups before you start, making a phone call, literally locking yourself in a room with just a telephone and a yellow pages and going through it. But at that point, that's what you meant to do, and it did work. You worked long hours. But again, it was my grounding, and I kind of live and die by that today. I wouldn't have it any other way. Sorry. I think for me, the Eureka moment was probably about 3 years into my career, and ultimately not masses and masses of recruitment experience. I was classed as a senior consultant back then, and 3 years in. But I was earning a lot of profit for them on a weekly basis, obviously with the temp market, industrial market, high numbers. We had a plan, and there was 2 consultants on a plan, so me and we were making £14,000 to £19,000 a week every week for this company. And when you're doing that consistently, you kind of then realise, you think, this is the step where I know that I can make money at this industry. And ultimately, I suppose it's a cliche and a lot of people say it, but you are lining someone else's pocket. And I think it got to the stage where I'm thinking, this is a lot of money. If it's a couple of grand a week, then it would be a bit of a risk. But when you're talking 14, 15, 16,000 pound a week every week, I kind of then, this light bulb did flick and say, I am good enough to take on this challenge. It was a tough one, let me say, Roy. I'd saved up a bit of cash to bankroll the business when I first started it, but for the first, I think it was about 6 weeks, I worked a night shift in a factory, and whilst I built my business up, because I didn't want to touch any of the money in the business and just wanted to continue to bankroll it. But yeah, with my first business, it was a first insight into business to think, well, actually, you run a business in itself with your plan at a company, but that's got nothing to do with marketing. It's got nothing to do with the payroll. It's got nothing to do with with all the other background things, but it was a first insight into it. But the Eureka moment, I think, was the money side of it, and how much profit that I was pulling in for them.
So many kind of knowledge bombs in what you've just said there, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking about it. First of all, anybody who understands industrial temp recruitment will know and fully empathize with what a respectable figure that was. It's like, you know, traditionally a low margin, very high volume, quite intense, you know, on call 24/7. You know, that gives people a kind of a hint of what industrial recruitment is. So to achieve those figures on a weekly basis, you know, anybody working that market, I think, will be with full of respect for you. And it is that thing, isn't it, that hopefully none of your staff are listening to the once you realise how much money you can make, it's like, oh. Yeah. And it's interesting though, isn't it, that not everyone has that entrepreneurial spark, that gene, that piece of our DNA that says, you know what, I could do this. A lot of people think it, but actually don't do. So, you know, that occurs to me on what you've just said there, and just that thing as well that, you know what, we start recruitment businesses, many of us, because we were good recruiters and we can make money, and then it becomes that realization that, oh my God, there's all these other hats I've got to wear. It's, you know, the manager, the director, the accountant, you know, making sure that you're responsible for paying your VAT or not, you know, all of these different things. And if we could just get on with the business of making placements and being a recruiter, wouldn't life be simple? But actually there's a lot, you know, there's a lot more to it as a business owner. So yeah, loads and loads of stuff in there, and thank you for sharing that with us, Stephen. I'm really keen to ask you what you do personally that, I don't know, that you do consistently on a daily basis that sets you up. You know, maybe it's a morning ritual, maybe it's your, I don't know, you mentioned there in the good old bad old days doing the press ups before you got on the call and did your call outs. But what do you do on a daily basis that you think sets you up well?
Yeah, I don't have time for the press ups in a morning. And I think, to be fair, if I started doing that, Roy, I don't know how many staff will stay with me if I started doing that. So I don't do that. That's fair to say with that. I think probably one of the biggest things with me is probably really the structure of. I suppose it kind of covers a couple of different facets where you've got either the process and the procedures, or one thing that I live and die by, and actually this was part of my corporate career. I kind of had this is following a day plan, and meticulously staying to it. Do you know, Steve, and I mix things up every day. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these kind of military. Even though I'm saying that, my wife normally says that I'm quite military style. I should be in the army, but I don't follow it in a military style. But just in a meticulous way that you're saying, right, what have I got to get achieved today? Good. And this is the structure of how we're going to do it. And it can go down as simple as every single morning in my office or any offices that I've got. It's always we have a morning meeting. So it's the first thing to start the day off, and that's for everyone to kind of share their views, their opinions of what they want to achieve today, and for me to share mine. And then it's straight into core hours. And then one of my key things that I've kind of again lived and breathed is lunchtime. Whenever you have a lunchtime, you use that hour. Don't sit at your desk and kind of go through emails and kind of start doing your own admin, get yourself out of the office. Now, even if I've got a situation where I can't leave the office, I'll go and walk around the blocks. I think it's time that you just need to get away from your desk, and I encourage anyone that ever works for me is to say, right, just use that hour to go and get yourself out, and then back into your core hours after lunch, and then sorting your day out then for the next stage, and obviously making sure then you're writing your daily plan the day before. So I suppose it's sticking to a day plan meticulously, and obviously you can mix it up, but just making sure that you've got those core principles day in, day out.
I love the fact that Mrs. Convery thinks that you're military. That's
Very, very much so. I think I do it with the kids as well, and she's like, "Listen, they're children. You don't need to manage them like that." But
no, I think you got the right idea. I do believe you got the right idea. Stephen, you absolutely right idea. And I always think, I speak to people in recruitment that say, "Oh, this job is about fighting fires, and the job changes minute to minute, and all of that happens." And we know that it's a volatile industry that we work in, and no 2 days are the same. It's like it changes minute by minute. However, I'm with you. I really like the idea that we must always set our intention of the things that we need to get achieved, that we must get achieved, need to get achieved, and then the things that we'd like to achieve if possible.
Yeah.
Because without that plan, if you go into every day without any plan, then yes, you will be just fighting fires and dealing with whatever your inbox throws at you at that particular second.
Yeah.
But with a plan, what you can do is you everything that I see in my inbox, I'll always ask myself, is this more important than the thing I'd set myself that I needed to do? And I always would look to prioritize on that basis. So yeah, good, really, really good advice. And I love the fact that you're doing that. Okay, Stephen, question for you. What do you see as your biggest strength, and then conversely, your greatest weakness as an entrepreneur?
I suppose I've got a list of weaknesses, Roy. The strengths might take me a while to work out. No, I think probably one of my let's think, strengths. I'll probably go firstly with my wife again. One of my biggest strengths is having my wife by my side, and I think that is a great thing to have. She always backs me, and when she doesn't back me, I know it's not a very good idea. So having that person behind me, and I suppose a little bit like a mentor to always turn to run ideas past, and I suppose to firmly keep my feet on the ground, because I can get a little bit carried away now and again, as all recruiters can. Another thing I would say is my team, the team that I've got around me. More importantly, obviously, Karina Shields has been a great asset to myself, and a learning curve. I used to be a manager, and now we're joint owners, which is a challenge in its own right for anyone. But to make sure that the team that are behind myself and Concur Recruitment are really pushing this business forward, I think is one of the biggest strengths for me personally. And they all take on their own individual roles, and I hope that I guide them in the way that is making them succeed as successful people in their own careers.
Sure.
What else would it be? I think learning from the previous mistake that I had, Roy, with being complacent. I think one of my biggest strengths now is that I'm not. Since that day, I've not been complacent in whatever I've done. Okay. I've had a real structure in my mind of what I wanted to achieve from that. Whether it was going into corporate recruitment to give myself more exposure into the market and really see different facets of recruitment, because I was, and hold my hands up to say, I was a very one-sided recruiter.
Right.
And I knew that if I was going to develop myself further, I needed to see it from different eyes. So making sure that I wasn't complacent and going, right, okay, I can do this. Let me challenge myself to take on bigger and bolder roles. And I'd probably say today that is my strongest strength is every day I'm never complacent and never. It's probably not a very nice thing to say, but I'm never happy, Roy. I'm a happy person, don't get me wrong, but I'm never happy with what we've achieved. I always want to increase and gain further exposure to what we're trying to achieve.
I think that ties in really nicely to that complacency thing. It's happy maybe sort of I would say satisfied. It's like I never feel completely satisfied.
Yeah.
And I say this to people that I coach, that if you just see, our self-development as a mountain to get up, then what I find with a lot of people, recruiters, business owners, etc., is they reach the pinnacle of that mountain, and they just feel like, wow, I've arrived. It's like, that's it, I'm done. And I think the key thing there is to see our development, our life, our business as a mountain range. And as quick as we conquer one, we should be looking for that next challenge. What's the next bit that I need to get? And we constantly need to do that in order to, get momentum and feel like we're progressing in life and in business. So I like that, and I do think, and again, knowing you, it's probably more about to do with the complacency, not wanting to feel 100% satisfied with with life or business as it is, and I think that's a really strong driver. Okay, Steven, I'm going to get you. You've worked in recruitment for a while now, and like me, we've seen a lot of change in the recruitment industry. I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball for a second, and and tell us how you feel, or how you see the recruitment industry developing over the next 5 years.
Okay, I feel, and this probably stems from the last 2 years, and I think it's developing further and further. I feel recruitment's getting a lot softer, and I don't think it's a negative thing or a bad thing for the industry. I think, in fact, it's probably the best thing for the industry. Again, not to go back too much to our days, Roy, but recruitment was known as a bit of a sharky business. You've got these recruiters doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things, and I think I even partook in them myself in the past, but to try and get clients and obviously get candidates into work, and getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and dropping candidates down on site, and all those kind of weird and wonderful things you did. But I think it feels to me that a lot of people are coming into recruitment that probably don't want sales, which seems like a crazy thing, because recruitment is a sales industry, but it's a lot more kind of account management focused, or a lot softer. But the reason why I think it is actually a good thing for the industry is because you're gaining recruiters into your business that wouldn't normally look at, right, I don't want to be a sales consultant, I don't want a sales job, but they are coming into the industry, and that they are top talent. I mean, I've got one particular person in my business who is an account manager that doesn't want sales, and she's one of my top billers. So it's crazy to think, if I offered her a sales consultant role, she wouldn't be sitting in the seat that she's sat in today. So I feel it is going a lot softer, but I think the clients are probably getting a better service, rather than it being, and obviously not saying every recruiter was like it back in the day, but rather it being a sharky type of a recruitment mentality, or a real hard sales focus. So I feel that's the way that the industry is really going. And I'd probably say one of the biggest challenges for this industry over the next 5 years is going to be internal talent. As you know, Roy, we are in the phase of our business. We've got, over the next 18 months, we've got 2 branch openings. We're looking to employ 16 more staff over that period. And we've identified that is going to be our biggest driving factor next year, or the next 18 months really, of where we're going to find this top talent. But we've taken the approach that we can't just go, right, we want experienced hires, or we want freshies that have come in and got no experience at all. We're taking the approach that obviously we're going to naturally look for experienced hires. We're looking at grads. We even partner with the Institute of Recruiters to bring apprenticeships in. We've currently got one of our consultants on an apprenticeship at the moment. So really looking at the overall picture, saying we need talent in our business, but some of it is going to have to be that we are training one from within, but also trying to extract the experienced hires into the business as we possibly can.
Great insight, Stephen. I probably disagree with you just on one point, and it's, it's not really a disagreement. It's probably, again, just a choice of words.
Yeah.
I think you described it as the industry's become softer, and I know what you mean. I do know what you mean. I think, back in those good old bad old days, there were sharp angle sales techniques that are being used, and actually even today there are some of those techniques still being used by some of the dinosaurs. But I think even in those days there was a slightly more sophisticated account management driven salespeople, recruitment consultants that use that consultative selling skill to really, work together with candidates and clients to deliver solutions. I agree with you. I think the industry has grown up, and I think that those skills are probably more common, more evident than they ever were before.
Yeah, definitely.
And in turn, I think that's attracting people like your, one of your top performing consultants there that, not describing it as a sales position or not feeling that, this is sharp end sales technique, I think is attracting a different caliber of person. So, and long may that continue. I really do subscribe to that. Yeah. But listen, thank you. Really, really, interesting little take on it. And I know that, the challenge for you, for Concur Recruitment, and for many people watching and listening to this interview, it is like, we've got a great recruitment business, but in order for us to move towards our exit strategy, whatever that is, we need to go into a growth phase now. And the perennial challenge is, where do we find these people? How do we attract those people? How do we train those people? And then final piece, how do we motivate? And then the final piece is, how do we retain the very best of those? I think is a whole set of challenges that you, Corinna, and probably many, many more watching this will be facing over the coming months and years.
Yeah, and it's key, Roy. I think with what we've really worked hard on over the last, I'd probably say over the last 12 months, is just making sure that we've got the structure right internally. Because naturally everyone wants to grow their business, but you've got to make sure, and it is a real tough thing, that why would anyone want to come work for Concur Recruitment? Do you know what I mean? Obviously they'd like to work with me, Roy, but putting that aside, we've got to make sure that we have got a very good structure, whether it be development opportunities for people to come and join, whether it be, we do love the colour green, and the office is very nice and bright and airy green. I feel like we've got one of the leading industry packages, but then also over the next coming years, we're going to make sure that we've got one of the best training packages in the industry. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like, okay, well, I'll come and work for Concur Recruitment because I can do well and I can earn a decent amount of bonus. It's also about, actually, what do you want to achieve? You want to come to work, you want to be trained, you want to be mentored, you want to be developed. And I think that's an added thing, and probably what I meant as well with the kind of the Sharky recruitment comment. It was a case that sometimes you just got into it and that's it, and you kind of stay like that rather than kind of developing it and becoming more of a consultant, or the consultative approach. So you are, I suppose, in turn, really giving clients, and whether it be the client, be the candidate or the physical client, but really giving them the service they deserve rather than just chasing the next buck, so to speak.
No, it's a really, really good take on how it was and how it's improved. I really agree with you on all of those things. Steven, it's come to that time where I've got to ask you if you're ready for the lightning round. So, okay. Steven, are you ready for the lightning round?
Yes, I am, Roy. Yes.
Bring it on. All right, listen, my first question to you, what's the number one thing that you see holding recruiters back from being more successful?
That's quite easy, Roy, and that's not working for Concur Recruitment. If they're not working for Concur Recruitment, then they're not going to be successful. There you go. Was that quick enough?
It's a great answer.
No, No, in truth. Do you know what I'd probably say is working to a niche. And whether I don't think it doesn't matter whether you work for a generalist recruiter or you work for a specialist recruiter. I think within that, you need to choose a niche. And even when I'm interviewing, I say to people, what you've always got to understand in the market that you work. I am going to try and make this as quick as I possibly can.
Right.
Right. But in the industry that you're working in, you've got to enjoy that industry. It doesn't mean that you want to be an engineer, you want to be an IT consultant. But you've got to enjoy that industry because you're going to be talking to those types of candidates and those types of clients. First, you've got to enjoy it, but then also find your niche in that. Karina is a kind of a prime and perfect example to this. Previous company that she worked at, that where I used to manage her. She had she worked on a specialist division, but she had her own niche.
Right.
And in that niche, she knew every candidate and every client in that target market and really honed her skills to make sure that she understood. And that's not just understanding that what the client's needs are and what the candidate's needs are, but actually that industry. And it was a particular target position that she honed her skills on. The last year that she worked in that particular business, she turned over £250,000 worth of profit for that business within a year. So by just choosing a particular niche and not, like what I said earlier, not just working in for an engineering specialist or an IT specialist, but saying, right, actually, I'm just going to focus on, I'm going to work for an IT specialist consultancy, and I'm going to just focus on project managers. I'm going to know all the project managers there is in, whether it be the UK, the Midlands, and I'm going to work with all the clients that would need those skills.
Yeah,
I think that's probably one of the biggest things that could hold recruiters back.
I agree with that, Steve, and it's interesting because one of the things I would encourage you and other business owners when you're interviewing potential rookies to come into your business, get them talking about a passion or a hobby. And when you see that they're really animated at the height of that animation in how they're speaking, point out to them the state that they're in and say to them, that's how I need you to be about the desk that I'm recruiting you for. So, as you say, they don't have to want to be an engineer. They don't have to want to be an IT contractor, but they do need to be able to speak passionately about candidates and clients and opportunities. If they can do that about their own personal hobby or interest, then it's a really good clue that they'll be able to do it for the niche that they end up recruiting with. Okay, question number 2. What's the best piece of business or recruitment advice you've ever received, Stephen?
So I've had this twice. So I had the well, whether you call it advice or not, I call it advice. And that was that on both occasions I've been told I'm not good enough to run a recruitment business.
Wow. It wasn't me.
Yeah, no, it wasn't you, Roy. No, you haven't said that to me yet. No, I think it was. But for me, someone saying to that can only spur you on to kind of say, right, I will show you that I can do it. So for me, that was my advice to say, right, Steve, you can do it.
It's an interesting one. So when people throw the gauntlet down at you, you see that as a challenge.
You've got to take it, Roy. Exactly.
Perfect. Good. Okay. I like that. Thank you. Stephen, what's something that you see working brilliantly in your business right now? Maybe it's a piece of software, maybe it's an app or a hack that you guys use, but something that you guys are using in your office.
Yeah. I don't know if it's more to do with saying that what we're particularly using as like an app, like a hack or an app. But one thing I would say that's working brilliantly in our office at the minute is the diversification of what we're trying to achieve. We've got the process and procedures honed to such a point that actually it's going to be very easy for us to create new divisions and bolt on divisions to this business because of the overall structure, whether it be the actual database that we're using to obviously house or all of our information, or the cloud-based technology that we're currently using, and the social media. But we're making it that we are so diverse that actually what we're doing in one division can be completely replicated in another division, but making sure that we keep a real keen eye on compliance. Yeah. So even though we are swapping from one division to the next, the compliance and the overall customer service that the clients, like I say, candidates or physical clients receive will be exactly the same, and obviously and actually the highest standards.
Brilliant. I love that. And it's consistency, isn't it? It's that uniformity that candidate clients experience across Concur Engineering should be similar or the same even. You know, it's like the experience of those people should be exactly the same. Good. Okay. Stephen, question number 4. What's the best business book that you've read in the last 6 months?
It's been in the last 6 months, but I think it's probably the 5th or 6th time I've read it, Roy. Okay. And that's How to Win Friends and Influence People by obviously Dale Carnegie.
Classic.
I've read it that many times, but I never fully understand it. And I think every time I read it, I read nuggets that I think I've missed. So that was probably the latest book that I've read, albeit for the 5th or 6th time.
It's a brilliant book, and it's consistently been on my top list for since I first read it. It's one of the oldest, development books, self-development book, whatever you want to call it, but actually one of the best still. And you're right, actually, I always find that picking it up and reading it after not having read it for a few years or whatever, I find different messages. I really like that book. Thank you for sharing it.
I think probably what it is as well, Roy, is over the years I've lost that many friends, and I'm trying to think, I've lost all these friends, so I'll quickly turn back to that book and go, right, okay, I need to find some new friends again. But that's probably another reason.
Stephen, final question for you in the lightning round. If you woke up tomorrow morning armed with the same knowledge and experience and everything else that you've got that's brought you to this stage, but you didn't have Concur Recruitment, what would you do? What would you do to start all over again?
I think I'd do exactly what I did when we started Concur Recruitment, Roy. And that was obviously for myself. Before Concur Recruitment, for the last 4 or 5 years maybe, I've not been a recruitment consultant. I've been a manager or business owner. Good. And it was quite difficult for me going back and getting back on the tools. But I think it's like riding a bike. You kind of never lose those skills of actually the art of recruitment, and it's what we love, isn't it, Roy? Is actually physically recruiting people. And for the first 12 months of Concur Recruitment, I was back down to I might have had the title of a director, but I was a recruitment consultant, making sure that I'm giving clients and candidates the best service possible, and really making sure that I really build a good foundation and a good base for the business to start. So it would be that all over again. And I think in our first 12 months, Karina and I were obviously both on the tools. I think we converted something like 40-45 clients, which is not bad going for the two of us for the first 12 months. So
it's really good. And again, I think there's a real story there for people in that first year of recruitment. They start off, your recruitment skills should be at the forefront. It's like it's your skills as a recruiter. It's it's deals on the board, it's money in the bank, it's all of those things. And then always looking to work on the business, but at that stage it needs your recruiting skills. I think at the stage that you guys are now and have been for a while, it's okay, we can do that, clearly we can demonstrate that, but now it's how do we bring people in, develop those people and do more of it in order to grow in this phase of our development. So I'm not even going to wish you luck with that, Stephen. I know luck's going to have nothing to do with the success that you and Corinna are going to have there. Stephen, I'm really sadly, we've come to the end of our time in Recruiters Live Lounge together. Just two final things I wanted to ask you. Firstly, a parting piece of advice for people watching or listening to this interview, and ways of getting in touch with you after the show. Of course, we're going to post all of your relevant links, in the show notes below this interview. But what's the best way for people to get in contact with you, and what's your final piece of advice for people?
A final piece of advice would be if you're looking to come and work for a very dynamic business, then obviously come and work for me. Yeah, there we go. That good selling there, Roy.
Good.
One piece of advice I would say to recruiters out there is it is a hard game. We all know that. Do you know what I mean? It is long hours, and it always will be a roller coaster. But just make sure that when you've got those good times, you do enjoy those good times.
Good.
That is key in this business. You've got to make sure that you do focus and enjoy those times.
I love that. I love that.
And getting in touch with me, obviously we've got the standard LinkedIn. You can search me by my name. If guys want to contact me on my mobile, I'm sure we can add my mobile to the bottom bit, or come on to concurrecruitment.co.uk. We've got a link to any particular jobs that we've got posting at the moment as well, obviously internal positions.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Stephen, listen, on behalf of everybody at Recruiters Live Lounge, from all of our listeners and watchers of this the video podcast, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Roy. It's been a pleasure.
It's really, really great to share your journey, and I know that it'll be an inspiration for people watching and listening. To all of our listeners, viewers, you've been listening to Steven Convery, Director of Concur Recruitment in Recruiters Live Lounge. To receive this and every other episode, people that we meet that are the most inspiring recruitment entrepreneurs on the planet, to get more of these episodes, please subscribe. We'll get them delivered straight to your inbox. You'll never get a chance to miss any of them. So until we see you the next time in the Recruiters Live Lounge, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Stephen. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
How do you ensure that you deliver the best candidate in the market as opposed to on the market to your clients? Glover Daniels delivers fast and flexible recruitment research solutions to leading multinational companies and executive search consultancies around the world. They're able to deliver first-class results on your executive search assignments in a fraction of the usual time, which can also save you money. Go to gloverdaniels.com to receive an incredible discount on your very first assignment.